story I am about to tell you is so unbelievable that you will find it hard to believe. This is the tale of a house where traditions were strange and a woman was treated in such a disgusting manner by her own brothers-in-law that humanity itself would be ashamed. My name is Kamran, and I am an ordinary man from Karachi, Pakistan. My livelihood comes from my rickshaw. Like any other day, that morning I was waiting for passengers when a husband and wife approached me and asked to be taken to the station. The fare was reasonable, slightly more than usual, so I immediately agreed. After dropping them off at the station, I was turning back when I noticed a girl walking toward me. I thought she might want a ride, so I stopped the rickshaw. She looked to be about 25 or 26 years old, wearing a sari, and walked with a strange, stumbling gait. Without saying anything, she quietly got into the rickshaw and signaled me to drive. I assumed she was going to the main road, so I started the rickshaw. All the way, I kept glancing at her through the mirror. There was a mark on her forehead that suggested she was from the Hindu community. After a short while, we had left the station road behind. I turned around and asked, "Madam, where do you want to go?" But there was no answer. She was holding a bundle close to her chest, which seemed to be her only possession. I repeated the question, and she said, "Take me further." It seemed like she was new to the city and didn't know the way. I kept driving, and after a while, we had passed the main road as well. I asked again, "Madam, please tell me where to drop you off." This time, her voice came. "Drop me off where there is a Muslim neighborhood." I said, "But there are Muslims everywhere here. Please give me an address or a name." She lowered her gaze and, in a strained tone, said, "I don't want to go anywhere. Drop me off wherever you feel like." Her tone startled me. I said, somewhat annoyed, "If you don't know where you're going, why did you even take the ride?" That's when she started crying uncontrollably, and her tears began to melt my heart. I turned around and saw her, as fresh as a flower, with deep eyes that seemed to hold the silence of a century. I said softly, "Look, madam, that wasn't my intention. I didn't mean that I would take you wherever you want without any fare. Just calmly tell me." In a trembling voice, she replied, "I have no one in this world. No home, no support. Take me with you. You can make me your maid. Just give me 2 meals a day, and I'll never complain." Her words felt as though I were a king, and she, a royal servant. Now, there's something else I should tell you. I am crippled. One leg is lame. I drive the rickshaw with a wooden leg. That's why no one in the village would consider me for a relationship. Who would give their daughter to a crippled, unemployed man? But at that moment, I thought maybe this is my fate. I told her, "If you have no objection, I am willing to marry you. If you want, we can go right now. Or if you need some time, you can stay in Darul Aman until you feel ready. Let me know when you're sure." As soon as I said that, a strange light appeared in her eyes. She said with innocent simplicity, "You are a very good man, sir. What more do I need? Marry me. I am ready right now." Her simplicity and innocence made me smile uncontrollably. A thought crossed my mind. If this girl can fill my life with so much light in just a few moments, then imagine what it would be like to have her by my side for a lifetime. Thinking that, I called my lawyer friend Faizan Bhai and informed him of the entire situation. After a brief silence, he said gently, "Kamran Bhai, this is a delicate matter. Think carefully before making a decision." Then he added, "But I agree with you. My heart tells me this girl is pure-hearted and innocent." Giving advice was his job, and he did so. Then he said, "Bring her to the court." Until now, I hadn't even asked her name. As soon as the call ended, I looked at her, and I gently asked, "What's your name?" She smiled softly and said, "Simran." Her name was as simple as she was, yet full of warmth. I turned the rickshaw, and within 10 minutes, we arrived at the court. As soon as I entered my lawyer friend's chamber, the first thing he asked for was sweets, which I humorously dismissed, calling it the sweetness before the wedding feast. I then told him again that I wanted to marry this girl. He invited us into his office, arranged for tea and refreshments, called a couple of friends over, and even made arrangements for the marriage registrar and the qazi. There were 4 of us sitting in Faizan Bhai's office. My heart wished that Simran had a scarf or a shawl to cover her head, but she was wearing a sari, and its long end was draped loosely around her waist. I calmed my heart and remained patient. During the wedding, I learned that Simran had recently converted to Islam. She had no knowledge of prayers or fasting yet, but I wasn't surprised. Her appearance clearly showed that she was on a new journey. Faizan Bhai, taking precautions, asked, "Are you a virgin?" Instead of answering, she chose silence. Faizan Bhai interpreted her silence as the answer and completed the marriage certificate. And so, we were bound in the sacred bond of marriage. In that moment, I felt as if a new sun had risen in my life. Those who had said that due to my lameness and poverty, I would never find a wife, would now be left astonished when they saw Simran with me. I had already decided that the very next day, I would take a break from the rickshaw and take Simran to my village. I would introduce her to my relatives and show the world that Allah had written a beautiful, loyal wife in my fate, who was not only stunning in appearance, but also pure in heart and soul. The feelings that arise after a wedding are beyond words. Suddenly, I began to feel love for Simran. I went to the market, I bought a shawl, seated her in the rickshaw, and brought her home. Once home, I made tea with my own hands and served it to her. As soon as she drank it, she brightened up with freshness. I was tired myself, but the intensity of my happiness made me forget all the fatigue. I told her, "You stay here, I'll go get some new clothes for you." I don't know why, but she didn't seem right to me in those old clothes. I went to the market and spent almost half of my savings solely on Simran. New clothes, food, and some necessary items. When I returned home, I found her sitting quietly, waiting for me. I smiled, handed her the clothes, and said, "Wash your face and hands. I'll get the food ready." She nodded and went to wash up. When she came out, her beauty had intensified. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She looked far more beautiful than before, with her honey-colored complexion, pink lips, and silky hair, like a picture from a dream. When I gazed at her, She lowered her eyes shyly. It felt like a beggar had received a heavenly fairy in paradise. I fed her with my own hands, offering her my love and warmth, and saw that her face now held peace and contentment instead of anxiety. I could hardly believe that in just 2 hours, my lonely life had changed so drastically. It felt like I was in a beautiful dream from which I didn't want to wake up. My little room, where I had once been alone, now held the glow of a companion. With her sitting next to me, I felt as if I had gained the greatest blessing in the world. Our days and nights were filled with joy and happiness. I had given Simran the name Mariam, a pure, spiritual, and loving name. Whenever I would ask her about her family or past life, she would either change the subject or become so quiet that I wouldn't dare ask again. I didn't want to make her restless, so I didn't insist further. Besides, I was someone who lived more in the present, rather than being concerned with the future or the past. I focused all my attention on our relationship. One day, I decided to take Mariam to a nearby park. She had mentioned that she belonged to a non-religious tribe where strange customs were followed, and women were rarely allowed outside the house. The city was a new world for her. After bringing her to the park, I saw the innocence and freshness of childhood in her eyes. She smiled when she saw the swings but hesitated to sit on them. I didn't press her. We left the park and sat at a roadside eatery, when I suddenly noticed a man staring at us. His interest was far more in Mariam than in me. I was someone who avoided fights, and these things were common in the city. But his staring was becoming unbearable. He was now typing something on his phone, and then suddenly, holding the phone to his ear, he said, "Yes, Shabila, very big news for you. Come to the station. I'll tell you everything." After saying this, he hung up, stopped looking at us, and left the eatery. Mariam, unaware of all this, was still calm, but my heart was filled with an odd unease and fear. We quickly finished our meal, and I took her outside. On the way, I felt like someone was following us, but whenever I turned around, everything seemed normal. I couldn't tell if it was just my imagination or reality. About an hour later, we reached home, and it was time for the Maghrib prayer. I told Mariam I was going to the mosque to pray, and firmly instructed her not to open the door for anyone, even if they mentioned my name. I told her to say I was at the mosque for prayers. When I returned half an hour later, I found Mariam terrified and trembling. Tears were flowing from her eyes. I asked her what had happened, and through her sobs, she said, "A man came after you left." The door was being knocked on so loudly that I thought it would be broken down and they would come inside. Maybe a neighbor had intervened, and that's why they left. I tried to reassure Mariam, telling her it might have been a child trying to scare us, or an old friend of mine playing a prank. Some of my friends really do take foolishness to extremes. I asked the neighbors, and they told me that 2 strangers had come after I had gone to the mosque, and they had never been seen in the neighborhood before. People had eyed them suspiciously and had chased them out of the area. Hearing this, I felt a disturbance in my heart. Who were they, and what did they want from us? The next morning was Friday, and I always stay home on Fridays because I don't work on Fridays. and I didn't take the rickshaw out. It hadn't even been a month since my newlywed wife had come to my home. Like every day, I went out to get halwa puri for breakfast. When I came back, I saw the same two strangers standing at my door, knocking vigorously. I asked in a cold tone, "Who are you?" One of them angrily replied, "You've hidden our girl in your house." I was stunned. "Which girl?" I asked. "There is only my wife here, and her name is Mariam," I told them. They said, "We know everything. She is our wife. You've forcibly kept her here. Open the door, or we'll skin you alive." The way they looked made them seem like thugs. Seeing their threats, I lost my patience. I set the halwa puri aside, rolled up my sleeves, and said in a firm voice, "If you have the guts, then show me. This is my neighborhood, and everyone here knows me. If you keep talking, I'll beat you so badly that you won't be able to walk back on your own." Upon hearing this, one of them grabbed my collar and said, "Looks like you don't know who I am. My name is Chabila, and even the biggest people tremble at my name. Chabila, don't mess with me. Do what you have to, but I'm not scared of you." Our shouting and arguments drew a crowd of neighbors, and seeing the situation escalating, someone had called the police. In no time, the police arrived at our door. The situation had become strange, and there was no other way to stop these goons. As soon as the police arrived, they started to get nervous and tried to flee, but the police quickly apprehended them. The police sternly asked, "Why were you troubling a respectable man?" The neighbors supported me. In response, they said, "This man has forcibly kept a woman from our tribe in his house." Upon hearing this, the police called for a lady constable and ordered a search of the house. Mariam was deeply frightened and disheartened by the whole situation. She was trembling and said in a shaky voice, "I am this man's wife. I came here of my own free will. I also presented our marriage certificate and all the evidence, convincing the police of the truth." The police ordered that those thugs be taken to the station. After they were taken away, I felt a sense of relief, and my senses returned. I started thinking about who these people were and whether Mariam had any past connection with them. The incident at the dhaba came to mind when one man had been staring at us and mentioning Chabila on the phone. Now this thug had even introduced himself as Chabila. I closed the door and saw Mariam crying. Her eyes were filled with tears, but in my heart, I had nothing but love for her. I didn't blame her character. I made her breakfast, gave her some water, and then, with all my heart, said, "Mariam, you have become my life. But if you don't tell me about your past, how will I be able to protect you? God forbid. If these people come back and cause harm, I will break. If you don't tell me now, I won't be able to defend you properly." After I repeatedly asked her, Mariam finally broke her silence and said, "I come from a tribe that doesn't follow any religion or law. The man who called himself Chabila, the one who came to our door, he would come and threaten us. In fact, he was my husband, and the other tall man with him was his brother-in-law." When I asked Mariam for more details, she lowered her head and said, "They are 7 brothers, and they had no sisters. They had formed a gang within their tribe, which they called the Force, and they would get their way through the use of power. On the outside, this area appeared respectable and bound by tradition. But behind closed doors, there was always some shameful secret that people were too scared to speak of. In this community, no wedding was complete without gold or silver. The bride was laden with jewelry, and people would spend all their life savings for a wedding. But once the wedding was over, no one cared about what happened next. 6 months ago, I too had gotten married. I was weighed in gold and silver, and my parents were given a hefty amount in return. And in this way, I became part of Chabila's family. Chabila's influence was widespread throughout the neighborhood, and he had 6 brothers. Perhaps that was why he considered himself powerful. On the day of the wedding, I felt a strange suffocation because there were no women in the house. Chabila's brothers began to tease me in a mocking manner, which caused me immense mental distress. I was aware of the traditions of my area, where it was considered a wife's duty to serve her brothers-in-law and father-in-law. In some cases, it was even said that it was permissible to spend the night with them. But my heart could never accept such things. I started to feel disgusted by their eyes, their words, and their hands. From that day, a new phase of humiliation began, and it never stopped. I became a silent toy in that house. I spent my days making bread, fetching water, and sweeping, and as night fell, I would endure a painful experience. It felt like I wasn't a human being, but rather a goat that had been tied up by its parents. In the light of day, these same people would call me Bobby and pretend to be respectable and honorable in front of the tribe. One day, I confided in an elderly woman who lived in the neighborhood, trusting her with my sorrow. She sighed and said, "I had 3 brothers-in-law and 2 fathers-in-law. I never objected to who my husband was. You New Age girls are strange. Every woman is meant to serve all the men in the house. You must understand what it means to be a woman, to endure. It is your fate." When I heard her words, it felt as if my soul shuddered. I asked her, "Is this how it is in every house? This cruelty and mistreatment?" She lowered her head and said, "Our traditions are like this, and you will have to follow them." Perhaps this was why people would take everything from the bride's family as dowry. But once the wedding was over, no one cared about what happened to the girl. Since childhood, I must have had the guidance of a pure soul who never accepted such filth. I decided to run away, but I didn't know where to go. A little far from the settlement was an intersection where buses were parked. Without thinking, I boarded a bus. My only fear was that I would return to that same darkness. The journey was long, but my heart found peace knowing I was far from that hell. There was a corner in the bus where a young couple sat. The man had a shining beard, and the woman was wearing a black burqa. I looked at them with longing and wonder. How simple, how pure they were. Suddenly, my eyes fell on a man sitting on the seat in front of me. He was staring at the burqa-wearing woman with a shameless gaze. But as soon as her husband noticed him, a fierce storm appeared on his face. With the appearance of honor and protection, he rushed at the man like lightning. He scolded him openly, and soon the entire bus crew, including the conductor, rushed to the man and threw him off the bus. I was immersed in astonishment. Can a man really protect his wife like this? While in my neighborhood, manhood was understood to mean that if a woman came into the eyes of others, her owner would give her away for some money. But today, I had witnessed a new scene that became a beacon of hope for me. I learned that the man was Muslim, and at that very moment, I made a decision in my heart. If I were to marry, it would be to a Muslim man who protects and respects his wife, not one who treats her like an object. That's why, when I sat in your rickshaw, I asked you to drop me off in a Muslim neighborhood. And when I met you, the peace and nobility in your eyes made my heart testify that yes, this is the person who could be my refuge. When you fought with Chabila, a feeling of admiration arose in my heart, one that I could never express. I became infatuated with you. I owe you everything. Please forgive my mistakes. I will always consider you my king, and if you ask, I will even give my life. But for the sake of Allah, do not separate me from you. Indeed, Islam is such a great religion, where a woman is not only respected, but treated as a trust. I embraced Maryam and assured her, "You are my wife, my honor, and will always be. I respect your truth and will never leave you alone." After that, I taught her to read the Holy Quran, recite the Shahada, and perform the prayers. Now, Maryam is regular in her prayers. She has forgotten her past and embraced a new life. We left the old neighborhood behind and started fresh in a new place. After her arrival, my life was blessed. I had one rickshaw, and now I have 4. The income is good, and my business is thriving. I am completely sure that this is all a blessing from Allah, granted to me through Maryam's fate. If I had rejected her or been indifferent towards her, perhaps all of this would have stayed far from me. Today, she is happy with me, content. We have 2 lovely children, 4 rickshaws, and a life filled with pure love. My prayer is that Allah keeps our bond safe. Ameen.